What's happening, everybody? Welcome into the Wilbur and Gold Show. I am fired up on a Wednesday. One reason of that is because I have coffee, espresso. But I tell you, the main reason I'm fired up, I'm also fired up because we got a jam-packed show today. We got plenty to get into. Sports, jam-packed. Russell Wilson's going to the Broncos. Aaron Rodgers is taking the Brinks truck and bringing it out to Green Bay, and he's sticking around with them. We'll see how that goes. But more, the ACC tournament's going on up in Brooklyn, basketball. But most importantly, the most important piece of business to tend to today, Space Jesus. Hallelujah. He's coming. Obi-Wan Kenobi is coming. We got our first look today of Obi-Wan Kenobi, which will drop May 25th. And I dare say that, and that's what I'm seeing across the stratosphere of the Star Wars world, it's what I'm hearing, is that the trailer is imminent over the next 24 hours, which that was being said like 9-10 hours ago. So I dare say the Obi-Wan Kenobi trailer will drop today at some point. I would like to think, I've got a few reasons why I and others out there believe that to be the case, because I don't think anybody's officially come out and said, hey, trailer drops today. Like, Star Wars didn't come out and say that, but there are some clues to take a look at. So, woo! What a rush. That might have been the best opening to a show we've had ever. Episode 48 this is. I believe it says 47 in the listing right now. I'll change it afterwards in post-production. But yeah, so a lot to get into today. We will start where we are right now. I didn't even turn my light on. Put a little light on the subject there. It's bright. It's a little too bright. Oh! Will that stay is the question. Nope. Nope. Yeah, no light today. I don't feel like messing with that. Well, actually, if I can get it to stick right there, maybe it will. Oh, that's beautiful. I got it to hold. Fuck. Don't fall. Don't fall. Come on. Hey, behave. Look at that. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Nice and bright. Let's put a little light on the subject here. So yeah, Obi-Wan Kenobi. We got our first look today in an article. Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Space Jesus. He's gracing the cover of this latest Entertainment Weekly that just dropped. And a crap ton of first shots of episodes are there. We obviously see plenty of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And as Ewan McGregor basically described him, he's kind of... And I'm hoping that it's not to the degree of what Luke was in Last Jedi, because I can only imagine the outrage if that is done again. And I would hope Star Wars would be smarter than to try and go down that road again. But I can see... So Ewan McGregor basically describes him as he's kind of faithless right now. He's kind of hit rock bottom. He used some other words to describe basically the state of Obi-Wan Kenobi right now. Obviously, he's in hiding on Tatooine. But I'll pull up the article and kind of get into the full detail of it for you. But basically, go figure. He basically just trained and lost to the dark side, the ultimate villain outside of the Emperor in the galaxy. And he's helping terrorize the galaxy, and he trained this guy, and he lost him. And we know the story, but pull it up. Here we go. So Ewan McGregor basically describes him. I want to get the exact quote. So he says that we find Obi-Wan at the beginning of our story rather broken and faithless and beaten and just somewhat given up. So, and again, rightfully so. I just hope it's not. I really hope it's not to the and I don't think it is, because I think Star Wars learned their fucking lesson on going that route with a character that we know to kind of, in Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, to not be that way. Even though I get the Luke Scott, a lot of people were outraged by how Luke was portrayed in Last Jedi, with just how he just like killed the Jedi, or not killed them, but like destroy in the Jedi Order essentially. But in spite of all that outrage, and I understand why people feel that way, because Luke Skywalker has been always, the hope figure and kind of the heroic figure of the Star Wars, or one of the main heroic figures of the Star Wars. And he's very, we don't give up. And I really like that line they used in the Book of Boba Fett, that episode with Luke training Grogu. He said, always get back up. And I felt like that was a little bit of a rectification of what they did to Luke's character in Last Jedi. But at the same time, to a point, I do understand why Luke would have been in that state, because like he just tried to rebuild the Jedi. He defeats Vader, brings Vader back to the light, Anakin, right before he dies, and he wants to be the one who really brings back the Jedi Order. And so he does, and then he loses Kylo Ren, and all his Jedi Order is destroyed. And so he blames himself for a lot of that. And I understand why Luke would be in that type of state. I mean, you go out and you start a Jedi Order, and then one bad apple, Kylo Ren, destroy everybody, kill all your Jedi, all your younglings, and see how you feel about it. You might be a little depressed, just saying. But I do think we will see a better version of attempting to go down that road with Obi-Wan Kenobi, because it again, rightfully so. He's watching Vader from afar, basically destroy and terrorize the galaxy with the Emperor, and he trained this guy from the ground up, or since he was a kid. So it's just like, but I think, if anything, I feel like this story, because notice Ewan McGregor says at the beginning of our story, we see him in that state, and I do think we will see Obi-Wan kind of refine his way across this show. I do think this will be kind of where we see that start to happen. At least that's my prediction. And kind of see him find that hope again of like purpose and whatever. But anyway, so we see plenty of shots of Obi-Wan for the first time. We also, which I'm very excited about this, we get our first look at a live action Inquisitor. Her name is Reva. She's played by, who is she played by? I don't know this act. I feel like I've seen her. I don't know her. She's played by Moses Ingram. And yeah. So it's an Inquisitor named Reva. And we will see that for the first time. And from what I'm reading here, it's not shown in the photos, but we will get the Grand Inquisitor for the first time in live action as well. And from what it says here in this article on Entertainment Weekly is we will basically see Reva, our Inquisitor, working directly with the Grand Inquisitor and, of course, Darth Vader. And that's going to be kind of your villainous trio of this show. And we will see, again, we talked about this last week, we will see if maybe in just a brief, maybe even if it's just a brief cameo or kind of like a quick little meeting between either Vader, I would assume it would be Vader because we haven't seen the trio of Vader and Palpatine since Revenge of the Sith together anyway. So even if it was like a quick cameo, like a quick little hologram meeting between, little Zoom meeting between Vader and Palpatine like we saw in Empire Strikes Back, even that, like, we might get to see Ian McDiarmid, as Palpatine yet again, because, I mean, he said, don't say never, or something to that effect last week. So yeah. But that's going to be your villainous trio, Vader, Grand Inquisitor, and then Reva. So We also get to see our first shot of Owen Lars, played by Joel Edgerton, who played Owen Lars in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. And in this shot here, he's literally face to face with Reva, the Inquisitor. Not sure how well that's going to go, but, and I assume, because that's what Inquisitors are, they're Jedi hunters, I would assume she's looking for Luke. So that's pretty much what we get in these photos here. Plenty of Obi-Wan, plenty of Reva, and then we get this one of Owen Lars and Reva face to face, kind of in a face off, because that's what face to face is. And then other rumors out there about what we could see in this show is potentially Qui-Gon at some point or another, kind of, I guess, consoling Obi-Wan. Because, I mean, remember, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, Yoda literally told Obi-Wan of this power of communicating with Force Ghosts that he's learned, and that he was going to train Obi-Wan how to commune with Qui-Gon's Force Ghost. So I don't see any way we don't get at least a brief moment between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. Like, I just don't see how they could do this show and not add that. So good chance you'll see that. There's a good chance we see a very young Luke or Leia or both at some point or another. I do believe it was reported that we're going to get to see Bail Organa again. Obviously got to see him in Rogue One. So a lot to be excited about with this new content that's out around the Kenobi show. And again, I mean, it could happen over the course of this show we're doing here. A good chance that the Kenobi trailer will drop over the course of this day. And the reason is so there's an Obi-Wan Kenobi Twitter now. In other words, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show Twitter that was just made literally today. In the first tweet, hello there. And then in another tweet, it says, I'll find it. They tweet, and this was almost like a guarantee of like setting up that we're about to get this. The Obi-Wan Kenobi Twitter tweeted out, no, the trailer is not out. And to be honest, I'm not even getting my hopes up for tomorrow, as in today. Like, why would I set myself up for disappointment again in all caps? That's from the Kenobi trail. That's from the Obi-Wan Kenobi official Twitter account. So to me, that almost guarantees and sets up we will get the trailer probably this evening or late in the afternoon, I would imagine. Because, I mean, the damn show drops. And that's usually how this stuff works, is when we get these first shots of new shows coming out. Like, I think House of the Dragon, the Game of Thrones prequel, was like this. We got our first, like, shots of the show, and then the trailer dropped kind of along with it. So that's usually how this stuff goes, is once they kind of start to put out these first shots, is the trailer follows, like, right behind it. So I would imagine that's going to be dropping later today. So let's get into Russell Wilson going to the damn Broncos. Did not see that coming. How do you like that, Broncos fans? You know what I like to equate this to? And I was thinking about this. So, you know, like at Christmas or your birthday, when you've just got this present that you're asking for from your parents or whoever, when we were growing up. It's like you've got this one gift that you just must have. It's like your main thing that you're asking for, and you've beat it to death. You probably annoyed the shit out of your parents over it, but it's like you must have this thing. And you've made it clear, like, you want that. And your parents know you want that, and they're planning to get that for you. So they're trying to find it, whatever it is. So let's just pretend you want an Xbox. The brand new Xbox is out. Your parents are out, they're looking, and they just cannot find an Xbox. They're out. But then they get you a place. They say on Christmas Day or on your birthday or whatever day, he's like, listen, I could not get my hands on an Xbox. But I got you something else. They did have some PlayStations, which are better than Xbox. They got you a PlayStation. And it turns out you didn't think you would because you didn't really think about it because you were just so consumed by this Xbox that you wanted. It turns out that you started to play and you liked PlayStation just as good and turns out even more so than the Xbox. That has just went down for Denver Bronco fans. You've been thinking about Aaron Rodgers this whole offseason thinking, it's been between going back to Green Bay or coming to Denver pretty much for Aaron Rodgers. And he comes out yesterday, or the report comes out, he's going to sign a ridiculous, one of the richest per year deals in NFL history for any player, any position. And he's going back to Green Bay. And after about an hour and a half of, damn it, your parents go, hey, couldn't get you Aaron Rodgers, but I got you something just as good, maybe even better. How'd you like to have Russell Wilson? How's that sound? That's what went down yesterday in Denver. And I would argue just because of, I think Aaron Rodgers, is better than Russell Wilson on a just pure talent perspective. But I think what Russell Wilson brings to your locker room and the leadership he brings that I would argue Aaron Rodgers does not, at least not on Russell Wilson's level, I would argue you're better off with Russell Wilson than you ever would have been with Aaron Rodgers. Because Denver, this to me feels like Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay. They had the pieces there. You got Jerry Jeudy. Is Melvin Gordon still over there? I don't know. But you have pieces in Denver to work with. They just needed the quarterback. That's all they've needed for a while because Teddy Bridgewater wasn't the guy. I know that as a Panther fan. Drew Lock wasn't the guy either. I like him. I like his swag he rolls with, but he's not that guy, at least from a quarterback perspective. Russell Wilson going to the Broncos with those weapons is, to me, there goes my light, it burns out after a while. It is very similar, if not identical, to Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay because Tampa Bay, Jameis Winston, he was putting up numbers, but he made a lot of mistakes too, a lot of turnovers, and they had weapons there. Mike Evans, was Chris Godwin already there? I don't know. But they had weapons over there. They just needed the quarterback to get him over the hump, and that's what Tom Brady did. And I really believe this is what Russell Wilson's about to do for Denver. So he immediately he makes them a threat immediately. I'm not going to call them a Super Bowl contender right away, even though I definitely think they're in that discussion. They're like right there. But I just feel championship contender and GOAT status, and best player in the world. Those phrases to me amongst sports media get tossed around like, I don't know, like they get tossed around so easily. It's just like, I'm not going to just immediately throw them into they're a Super Bowl contender, even though they did just enter the chat, though. I will say that. When you've got Russell Wilson as your quarterback and those type of weapons to work with that he did not have anymore in Seattle, that type of – I don't know what their offensive line is, but it's better than what he had in Seattle. When you have that to work with, his leadership and his skill set, they just entered the chat. They're not the team to beat yet, but they entered the chat. What else do I want to get into here? Take a look at Twitter. I want to keep on high alert in case the trailer drops. Oh, that's cool. They've got here, so apparently Ewan McGregor has been on the cover of Entertainment Weekly 6 times as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Or I don't know specifically as Obi-Wan, but he's been on the cover 6 times. And they've got, I would assume, his first time in 1999 as a Padawan Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then this one here 23 years later. It looks like that one was March of 1999, because that's how the Star Wars movies used to come out. Is they used, at least I know Revenge of the Sith came out on May 5th, I believe, or May 19th, I think it was, of 2005. Now we always get the big Star Wars and Marvel movies like Spider-Man. We get the big movies now like around Christmas time. I guess so it kind of coincides with the holiday season and gifts and things like that, and just things to do for the holidays. But that is pretty cool there, that the shot here of Obi-Wan, his first cover as Obi-Wan, and then now his most recent one 23 years later. That's pretty cool. But, yeah. So let me go here, because I'm a Panther fan, and this kind of, and I'm an ACC guy, so this kind of coincides together. Can we please talk about Kenny Pickett's hands? This was a headline towards the end of going into the weekend last week. Kenny Pickett's hand span or whatever measured like 8.5 inches, and that's like really small for a quarterback. Joe Burrow had small hands too. His was a touch bigger than that, his span. But even, it was a whole thing on that. We see what Joe Burrow was able to do. Listen, people are going to make this a big deal, but I care about your production and what you do. So if we didn't know a damn thing about Kenny Pickett and he was just a prospect coming in from who knows where, and he's trying to get into the NFL draft, and we saw his hands were that size, like in theory, yes, we still shouldn't allow that to dictate his success or lack thereof. But if we had no other data, it probably would for some people. But we have the data on Kenny Pickett. And he tore up the ACC last year. Now, he tore up the ACC last year. And to me, that's what I care about, is his production and what he's done. Same with Joe Burrow. Same with anybody else. If you've tore up the league and a metric makes you – so if you've got a metric – I care more about game experience and production in the game than a metric. Sorry. One matters more than the other. It's like, you were the best quarterback in the ACC. You're one of the best quarterbacks coming into this draft, but, them hands, man, that ain't going to do it. You see, that's so stupid. Joe Burrow's hands, Michael Vick had small hands too, by the way. But look at his production. And Kenny Pickett, there's a reason he wears gloves, by the way. Now, I don't know. You might be able to tell me this. I don't know. So he wore gloves, I know, this year. I don't know if he did before that. But that's probably the reason he wears gloves, is because he knows his hands are a little on the smaller side, and he found something, a little hack that works for him. So he wears gloves. That's something to consider as well. I tell you this, so kind of putting the Panthers spin on it, because I am a fan. I'll tell you, the Panthers have the number 6 overall pick in this draft, and I got to be honest with you, I think they should take Kenny Pickett. The Panthers have a quarterback problem and they have an offensive line problem, but you can fix your offensive line problem with elsewhere than that number 6 overall pick. You must take a quarterback, and this isn't the strongest quarterback class in the NFL draft. It doesn't have the sexiness and pizzazz and the depth that last year's did with like a Trevor Lawrence, a Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and others, But you have to take a quarterback. The Panthers butchered it last year. Well, I'm not going to say they butchered it, but you literally had, and I love J.C. Horn too, by the way. That's who the corner that they took, the Panthers last year. They had the number 8 overall pick last year. But, and the fact that they have an even higher pick this year further proves my point. Like, you literally had Justin Fields and Mac Jones sitting in your lap if you're the Panthers last year. And you took J.C. Horn, who I like, by the way. I like J.C. Horn. I like his edginess. But you didn't need him. You already had Jeremy Chin. You literally went all defense the draft prior. All defense. Not a single offensive player taken in the draft the year prior. Matt Rule's first year. You didn't need. You already had Jeremy Chin. J.C. Horn got hurt anyway, and you ended up with Stephon Gilmore anyway. So in theory, you really didn't need J.C. Horn. As good as he is and as much as I like him, you didn't need him. You know what you did need? A quarterback. You could have had Justin Fields, that's who I would have taken because I think his passing and running and just explosive ability would have fit perfectly with young, up-and-coming offensive weapons, a young defense that's up-and-coming that you drafted the year prior. You know, he would have fit great with Christian McCaffrey, even though Christian McCaffrey got hurt. But when the time you had him, he would have been great in the backfield with Christian McCaffrey as a running threat. So, you know, you get a little play action involved. You don't know if he's going to McCaffrey. You don't know if he's going to run it, Justin Fields. You got DJ Moore. You got Robbie Anderson. You got others. Like, he would have been the perfect quarterback to kind of ride with this young, up-and-coming Panthers team. And then you fix the O-line, and there you go. And to me, like, you just have to take a quarterback with this number 6 overall pick more than you need to take an offensive lineman for this reason. As important as the offensive line is, this is a quarterback coach-driven league, but a quarterback-driven league. I want to highlight that. Quarterback-driven league. You are only going to go as far as your quarterback takes you, for the most part. If you don't have a Patrick Mahomes, a Josh Allen, a Joe Burrow, a Tom Brady, you're not going to a Super Bowl. Like, if you don't have that, if you don't have your guy, you're not going anywhere. Not in this NFL. And what the Bengals just showed us with Joe Burrow is that even though they had a shitty offensive line, they got their quarterback situation right 2 years ago. And in 2 years, they literally went from one of the worst teams in the league. Forget that. A year prior, they were they still weren't great in Joe Burrow's first year. And then he got hurt and he was out for a majority or at least half of the year. Like, you went from that situation to in the Super Bowl and damn near winning the Super Bowl. You were right there. You were right there. Yeah. With a bad offensive line. And I'll go even a step further from a Panthers perspective. 2015, the year that the Panthers went 15-1, Cam won the Super Bowl, and they ran through the league and went to the Super Bowl, and they got handled by Von Miller and the Broncos. But the point is they got there. They came, I don't know what it became through either acquisitions or throughout the year that year, but that year that the Panthers ran through the league and went to the Super Bowl and Cam won the MVP, they came into that season with the single worst offensive line, 32 out of 32, and got to the Super Bowl and ran through the league that year. So it just goes to show, like, you can get to a Super. Now it's tough to get it done and win the damn thing, but the Bengals were right there. They were right there on the cusp of winning a Super Bowl. Bad offensive line. Panthers ran through the league, got to the Super Bowl, and just a great performance by Von Miller that finally exposed that offensive line, I might add. But you got there. So, to me, that's why priority number 1 for the Panthers, specifically with that number 6 overall pick, it has to be finding the quarterback. And I'm not even necessarily saying that they're going to find it, but you got to try. You got Malik Willis. You got Kenny Pickett. I'll even say you got Sam Howell to look at, Tar Heel. Because say what you want, even though Sam Howell and the Tar Heels didn't pan out and they were overrated, but Sam Howell's performance was not. You cannot look at the Tar Heels' overall underperformance this year and pin it on Sam Howell because they were putting up points, by the way. And the Tar Heels had no offensive line and their defense didn't show up. And yet Sam Howell, in spite of that, and in spite of running for his life a majority of the time, was able to go and put up the numbers offensively that he did for a majority of the season. Go look it up. Go look at how many points they averaged a game. That was with little to no offensive line protection. That offensive line couldn't stop a tissue. And Sam Howell was able to do that. So his stock did come down because of the Tar Heels' overall performance. But don't get me wrong, like he's a threat too, potentially in the league. We'll see how his game transfers to the NFL level. But you got quarterbacks to choose from here. I would go with Kenny Pickett because I think he's the most ready to start now because he was a fifth-year senior. And and I believe Joe Burrow was a fifth-year senior too. And I'm not saying that Kenny Pickett's going to be Joe Burrow, but to a lesser degree, you got a similar situation where a fifth-year senior really popped, and he's the most. Trey Lance, as you're hearing, isn't quite pro-ready yet just because of the lack of play he got in college. He's got all the potential in the world, but he doesn't have a lot of experience under his belt yet. Joe Burrow did. Kenny Pickett does. And he's ready to go now. He's the most pro-ready quarterback, in my opinion, in the draft right now. I don't know a lot about Malik Willis, so I can't say about that. But Kenny Pickett's pro-ready. And the Panthers need a pro-ready guy. Because Sam Howell ain't it. I'd love to see him bring back Cam Newton as like a backup, setup guy because he's lethal in the red zone. I mean, some of Cam's best moments this year, say what you want about him, some of his best moments came in the red zone. Like I remember that first touchdown he got in his home return against Washington. They're in the red zone, like at the 10-yard line or whatever it was. He threatens to run. He starts to run. Defenders come in to attempt to stop this, specimen of an athlete. Bullet into DJ Moore, touchdown Panthers. That is why Cam, I feel like that alone, that threat, that setup in the red zone, that alone makes him worth bringing back on some type of minimal deal. And, of course, he's a Carolina guy, and just his locker room presence, to me, makes it well worth it. But Sam Darnold ain't the guy. And that's another reason you were stupid to bet on Sam Darnold, because even though he was coming from the Jets and it was a situation where we didn't know, is it just Sam Darnold's not that good and that's the reason he was seeing ghosts and whatever? Or was it the Jets' bad culture that was just causing him to really struggle? I think Sam Darnold, I think you already got a taste of what it is. He makes kind of sporadic, bad decisions. He can still be a good backup in the league, I think. And maybe in some scenarios he could start with certain protection because he didn't get much of it on the Panthers. But he's not the type of guy to where he's running for his life and having to make kind of improv decisions. He's not that guy. He's not. So I think that was even more reason. Like, you should not have put the chips in the table on Sam Darnold like you did. But it's done with now. You've got another shot. That's why the Panthers cannot mess this up. The only other option, and even then, I'm like, you need to take a quarterback because it's just so important. And you've got Kenny Pickett right there on a platter, ready to go. He is ready to go. The only other option that the Panthers, if they don't take a quarterback with that number 6 overall pick, you damn better take the best offensive lineman in that damn draft if he's available. You better get him. I don't know who it is, but whoever the best offensive lineman in that draft is, he better be the only reason you don't take a quarterback with that number 6 overall pick. And even then, I'm like, you can get the offensive line figured out. Like, literally just take a quarterback and then draft all offensive line for the rest of the draft. And then make moves, in free agency and whatnot. But, you got to get the quarterback right. It's one of the hardest things in sports to find and do is find your quarterback that can take you there. Your Josh Allen, your Pat, because, they're rare. You got a shot here. Kenny Pickett's pro ready, and I think Panthers really got to take a look at that. So that's today's show. I'm winded. A lot of Star Wars, a lot of football. Love it. Plenty to get into. Plenty we'll be watching. Glad you tuned in with us. Glad you're watching. If you're watching the recorded afterwards, hope you have a great rest of your day. I'm Will Dalton, a.k.a. Wilbur and Gold. This has been the Wilbur and Gold Show. We'll catch you next time. Keep an eye out for the Kenobi trailer. We'll talk about it when it comes out.